Hey everybody. The holidays are approaching, and so I am making ornaments using my decals. If you're new here, you can find these at www.Fusing.shop, but chances are you've seen me do these quite a few times. I want to share some different ideas, like think outside a little bit, outside the box, as they say. I know that I have shared with you that I like to use a frit blend. Let's see, you can't see that very well. Let me put some light behind it. I like to use a frit blend and create kind of a true stained glass look. However, you don't have to do that. I have cut a variety of colors of just plain circles, and I am telling you, these decals, they fire so beautiful and black and crisp. They really pop against just a plain color. So I've done some turquoise here. This one is I don't know if you can see that, a rainbow irid on white with the irid side up. That's gonna fuse great. Spring green. So these are bullseye colors. This is a green that has a rainbow irid to it. The irid looks really cool, and you can apply the decal to the irid, no problem. So I've got a couple more, let's see here. Oh yeah, I had this triple aventurine streaky, and so you've got that, which I think will look neat. I've got just plain red in transparent. I've got red in opaque. These are gonna look awesome. French vanilla. I actually have a secondary idea for the French vanilla, so stay tuned to the channel and you'll see that. The other thing I want to say is you don't have to cut your circles 3.5 inches to match the decal. That's what I've done with most of these, but some of these I've done smaller, and that's okay. So all you have to do is apply the decal and then, trim the edge up a little bit. You can trim the edge beforehand if you want to. I'm going to apply the decal, just let it dry, and then go back and trim it up. And so that's an option. And guys, you do not have to hold on to the idea that they all have to be circles. So here's a square. I've chosen this decal, and I think this decal on this square would look really cool. So actually, let's do that. So let me walk you through the process here. So most every decal has some sort of tissue paper on it that you need to peel off. There might be a handful of them that don't. I'm peeling this part off just because this printing is also decal material and it tends to float off in the water, and I just don't want that. And so you have to print or get that tissue off though before you soak your decal. So I'm going to soak that in water, and then I will show you. Let me get my area cleaned up just a little bit. I'm going to show you all of these, so stay tuned after my firing to see what the final product looks like on these, just so you can see, again, how these decals pop off of regular plain glass. It does not have to be clear with the frit like I've done before. So I have cleaned all of my glass. I fired these to 1400, so I cut them. They had the raw cut edges to them, and I fire them to 1400 to kind of fire polish and round out the edges nicely. So my cutting wasn't the greatest there. I've got a little dip, but I'll put the bail there, and then that'll practically disappear. But then at 1400, they do, round off nicely and give me a nice clean finish. Now these decals don't have to soak long, 30 seconds or so. Then you just kind of slide it to the edge, and I'm going to apply this way. I didn't let this soak long enough. My water is a little cold. What you don't want is for the decal to fully float off the water like this is starting to do here. You have to fire the decal the right side up, if that makes sense. And so you don't want to leave it in the water so long. I'm stretching this. This is my bad, but I'll be able to fix it. So you've got a lot of time to work with the decal. And so what I'm going to do is get it centered where I want it. I'm just going to use my finger with some water to kind of smooth out the wrinkles and get bubbles out. And then you want it to dry, and then you go back and check again for bubbles on the back end. So I'm going to leave this overhang and then come back and trim it up when it's dry. So don't wrap it around the back because it'll kind of get stuck on there. Just kind of lay it out and try to lay your wings out. Again, you can cut these in advance if you want. I certainly could have done that, but you don't have to. So all I'm doing is just trying to get all of the wrinkles and stuff out. And then I let this dry for about 40 minutes, and I come back to check for bubbles again. If there are any bubbles, I just use a little pin or, the edge of say an X-Acto knife or something to kind of pop that bubble out. As a matter of fact, you can probably use an X-Acto knife to trim this up as well. So I feel like that decal is relatively well centered in there. What I'm trying to do is align these corners up as I visually look at it. So I'm gonna let this dry. I'm gonna cut these sides off. I'm just gonna kind of leave these wings hanging out here a little bit, and then I'll fire it and I'll show you what it looks like when it's fired, in addition to all of these others. Okay, in the case of this red one, it was barely too big, so I was able to just wrap it around to the back, and I think it's gonna be just fine. I didn't even have to cut that one. I do think it would be easier to cut these in advance, particularly if you're inexperienced with these, but if you're going to do that, definitely peel the tissue off first. It is much easier to get off when you have this full sheet where it's not stuck to the decal than it is to do it after you've cut. Once you've cut the decal, it's practically impossible to get that tissue off. So make sure that you peel the tissue first. And then I am just gonna take some scissors and kind of go around and cut that to size first. It'll make it just a little bit easier for you as you're applying it. And I have this one that I've done on a streaky green, and I have a mini-me. This is just a small, like 6-inch bowl from bowl mold from Lori Spray at Bonnie Doon Fused Glass Tools, and this I'm going to use to slump my decal piece into a small little bowl, all in the same firing. So I'm going to slump this at 1200 degrees for 30 minutes. That should give me plenty of slump to touch down and get a nice flat bottom, and 1200 degrees for 30 minutes happens to be the firing schedule for all of these decals. So I have a couple of other slumps that are going in right now, and I can fire all of this now in the same load. So 1200 for 30 minutes. Let's see what it looks like. All right, I have pulled the pieces out of the kiln, and let me show some of them off to you. Well, I'll probably show you all of them. So here is the beautiful transparent red. And so this is, I think, a really nice, classy look, particularly if you're going to hang it in a window as a sun catcher. So I've got the light box here so that you can kind of see that light coming through. Even something like this green, let's see if I can turn this off. So this is the spring green from Bullseye, which this looks really cool. The bright, well, not bright, but really intense black outline against the green is neat. But, you know, you even get some light that comes through that spring green. So that would look great hanging in a window or on a tree as well. Here's another example of that beautiful, let me turn that off, that beautiful outline that you get. Here is an opaque red. Again, you get a little bit of light that comes through that, but it looks cool as it is. This is one of the greens that I had that has an irid coating. So check that out. I did irid side up, and that decal adheres just fine to that irid coating, fires on there beautifully. So that gives it a really unique look. Here's another one, kind of, you know, same thing. So really neat there. Here is the white that had a rainbow irid on it. I don't know if you can see that very well for you, but again, fires just fine on there. And look at the crisp black lines that you get. Here is French vanilla, a couple of examples on French vanilla. Again, you're going to get light that comes through that too. So that looks neat, but even just as opaque glass, that's really cool. I did a couple of pieces of turquoise, Bullseye's turquoise. And then here is that streaky adventuring green. Has a really neat look to it. I think that's cool. That would look really neat in a window. Okay, and so I also took one of the green ones and I slumped it into that mini-me bottomless mold, and so got a nice little ring dish, little, you know, catch-all coin dish, something like that. And then let's talk about the other sizes. So here's one of the smaller ones that I did on red, and so this is not the same size, but still worked just fine. And then here are some of the smaller French vanilla ones. These are small little guys. And here's that square. So that looks awesome. I can't decide if I'll probably hang the bail on a diagonal and turn this into a diamond. But again, don't don't commit to just circles only. You can use these decals to do other shapes, and here's an example of where it worked well as a square. So I hope you found these interesting. The decals are available at www.fusing.shop. Thank you, everybody, for following along. I'm going to glue my bales on these. You can also find the bales there, same website. And I'm going to glue those up, and I've got inventory now for my holiday booth. Hope you found this interesting. Catch y'all later. Bye-bye.